Hiya! Welcome to this, my 60-second episode of VideoFuzzy. I'm your host, Terry J. Aman, sifting my basket of media memories, and in this installment, titled Everybody's Talking About How Bad This Is, I feature a revealing episode of period AMC drama Mad Men. I talk about local theater and troubling sitcoms, USA premieres, and it's been out for a while, let's talk about it. Birds of Prey was awesome. All that in an attempt to avoid copyright infringement. We'll see how that goes over. Welcome to the show. He doesn't have that on video, does he? We'll find out together on VideoFuzzy. Earlier this month, Ralph and I attended a gala benefit for the Bismarck Cancer Center, Masks in the Moonlight. I went with a group of colleagues from work, and it was a great night. Some great food, live entertainment, and oh, wow, they had live auction items like spa days and limo rides going for thousands of dollars. Oh dear, we are not fancy party people. Mainly, I wanted to take this chance to promote the cause. It's a good one, the Bismarck Cancer Center. You can log in. I'm sure they'll put whatever donation you're able to make to good use. Back in my little corner of City Brew this time, I enjoyed the balancing goat, but this space makes a perfect base of operations. Caramel Brulee Grande, light jazz, Lucius cover of Right Down the Line, Ed Sheeran's Candle in the Wind cover, Lady Gaga's cover of Your Song. Perfect vibe to update you all on what's going on with my cataloging efforts. So, quick production note, last few I've included a bit of musical karaoke-style noodling meant to evoke shows I'm talking about. Pull up my keyboard, doodly-doo, call to mind a TV show theme. I don't, no, this is one of those, the finger that points at the moon is not itself the moon, and I get that. I've always reserved lack of talent or musical ability as a defense, but people who work more closely with these issues than do I affirmed that the composing and rights holders could come after me for whistling if the effect was too reminiscent. So I'm await for the cease and desist on what's already out there and not attempt further. Nope. Generally I would assert fair use as a reviewer, but yeah, it's a question I've had for a while. If I'm only emulating commercially available music, not using the recordings themselves, I could still be on the hook. So this is a hobby. I'm not looking to infringe on anyone's copyrights or creative or intellectual property. Certainly not looking to incur damages of any sort. So any show I talk about, anyone can probably find theme songs on YouTube or stop on by. I'll dig into my disc collection and we can watch them all together. Friday Night Feature. Last week I pulled up disc 847 for cataloging, and I know I've talked about Mad Men before on here, but this episode felt like a standout entry for my Friday night feature. Run up to the third season finale, it set a lot of gears in motion to advance the storyline significantly. Nope, scratch that. Here's where you could imagine the theme music, RJD2's A Beautiful Mine, playing over animation of a well-dressed man free-falling from a skyscraper past images of the American dream and muted minor key champagne lounge noodling. You know, I absolutely want authors and writers to get paid for their work. The music, the art, why should it be free? Setting a tone is just as vital a part of storytelling as anything else, but if they're reasonably well compensated on the front end, they ought to be less grasping of this side, you know? They get money up front, they get all their residuals. Someone noodles a few maudlin arpeggios on a Casio keyboard that someone's, oh hey, that reminds me of that song that played nearly 100 times as part of an original production and 1,000 times since in syndication. I want a monies! Greed is not attractive. Just put a pin in this, I'll circle back. It all relates. The episode I found, The Mountain King, referenced In the Hall of the Mountain King from Peer Gynt by Edvard Grieg. What's been going on? Betty kicked Don out on suspicion of infidelity, episodes ago. He's been staying at the Roosevelt, and then he flew to LA on business and stayed behind, tracking down his ex-wife, Anna Draper.
What?
Yep. Years ago, Anna Draper tracked Don to where he worked at a used car dealership. The energy between them at the time was of serious mistrust. At this point in the series, we've learned Don has assumed the identity of a fellow soldier killed in Korea. At the time, Don, that is, Dick Whitman, craved a fresh start. His mother was a prostitute, his stepfather was abusive, a lovely home environment. He had zero prospects and nothing to come back to. So when Don Draper, a fellow soldier he barely knew, was killed along with the rest of his platoon, he leapt at the chance for a fresh start. We got the first inklings of this backstory in the first season episode 5G, where Adam Whitman turns up claiming to be Don's brother. That is, Dick Whitman's brother. Don gives him some money, but rejects Adam's attempts to reestablish a family connection. Depressed at this rejection, Adam takes his own life. And in the few weeks they knew each other in service, Don neglected to mention that he was married. Second season episode, The Gold Violin, a flashback sequence shows Anna confronting Don at his used car shop. We don't know exactly when, sometime after he got back from Korea and well before he ever met Betty. It's a bit confusing because all the Adam stuff happens contemporaneously to the events of the show. Don's picture appears in the paper from some advertising award he wins, and Adam tracks him down. We have to weave the Anna backstory into a deeper context. Well before he walked in off the street and became the creative director for Madison Avenue ad firm, he's still settling into this assumed identity. Anna walks in and confronts him for using her husband's information to purchase a car and open a bank account. In this episode, we see the aftermath of that confrontation. He comes clean, tells her who he is, and they figure out who each other are. She's got their house, and she teaches piano, so she's got some income, and Don agrees to send her support. As the episode opens, Don, she still calls him Dick, tracks her down as a means of escaping the chaos his life has become. His wife's kicked him out, work's not going great. It's a little tough to track, but I think he walks in contemporaneously. They shift almost instantaneously to a flashback and then return to the present, where a student of hers, Teddy, I think, might have been played by show creator Matt Weiner's son, is playing in the Hall of the Mountain King and ducks out. Don and Anna's relationship is far less strained at this point. She lets him stay for a while he's working stuff out. It's kind of like siblings or roommates. While staying there for however long he was staying there, a week maybe, he considered getting back into car sales or something, a whole new life, just abandoning Betty and his kids, which, wow, I get life is tough, but those kids love you. What kind of sociopath? Oh, right. Oh, he told Anna about Betty when he needed to divorce her, since, as the still alive Don Draper, they were, in fact, still married. It's just Dick Whitman, damaged product of a deeply alienating childhood for whom relationships of any sort appear fleeting and transactional. How do you instill a sense of trust and love in that environment? I can really understand the attraction of a fresh start. Bear in mind, this is still season 2. This is before Don and Betty separate, before Don meets and marries his secretary, Megan, in season 4, a whole world full of service with the partnership and his family. Don, it's got to be said, glass of ice water throughout, but really, I don't know, it can't just be how beautiful John Hamm is. I mean, this was a well-drawn, deeply written, complicated character, endlessly compelling, a great choice for, wow, did they know in season 1 from the pilot episode all the things they were going to be asking of him, because John Hamm rocked this role. So much so, in fact, even with multiple flashbacks, he's basically B-story for this one, or at least a generalized ensemble focus. Peggy, Elizabeth Moss, as copywriter Peggy, opens the episode in her broom closet of an office, but her insights really wow the popsicle people. They love her copy and the imagery, almost Catholic imagery, of a mother breaking the pops apart and giving one to each of her children, and she leverages the account, which she claims Don is cool with without even calling him, because, frankly, he's out in California somewhere, no one knows where, no one can get a hold of him. She leverages the account to get Freddie's old office. In other news, Joan's fiance, jealous of, I guess, the entire world, rapes her on Don's office floor. Nice. Bert, Roger, and the other partners sign off on a merger with a British agency in Don's absence, and Pete. Oh wow, Pete and Trudy are having... Trudy can't conceive, so she's contacting adoption agencies. Pete is absolutely against this, so Trudy calls her father, and he calls Pete, threatening to cancel the Clearasil account, despite the success they're enjoying, based on Pete must be distracted from the discord at home. Pete's like, what? Oh no, sir, you know what? You go right ahead and cancel that account. Then, in the complicated way this show is written, Pete finds himself in Peggy's office, which Peggy is loving the way her status in the office has gone up relative to Joan's, so when she lords it over her a little bit, you actually feel a bit sorry for Joan because, well, that thing with her fiancé had just happened, and when Pete asks her about it, nice office, he says, Peggy just says what everyone's thinking. Oh yeah, I'm sleeping with Don. It's going really well. At this point in the show, it's pretty obvious she's joking because no one's seen Don in forever, but yeah, there's a nice edge in Peggy's voice as she shoots him down. As for Don, in the closing moments of this one, he's at loose ends, where he wants to go, what he wants to do. He's basically said he doesn't feel a connection with anything in his life. He's thinking about maybe going back to used car sales, or maybe something with his hands, repairing furniture maybe. Anna gives him a tarot reading, lays out the cards with the World card in his future. As she explains its position, she says, the only thing keeping you from being happy is the belief that you're alone. When he asks if maybe that's the case, she advises, then change your point of view. The World card also stands for wisdom, she says, the wind, the water, the world. As the show ends, Don walks into the ocean, searching for that connection. I don't know whether he finds it or not, but I will say this. John Hamm wears shirtless very, very well. And wow, this show. As I've said elsewhere, I've always enjoyed this show, all the way through to the end. A good chunk of it ran during the dark ages for my collection, so whatever's missing I may manage to track down someday. It built to a very satisfying conclusion, so I do hope so. This episode contributed enormously to the series' mystique, and showcased a lot of the kinds of competing societal cross-currents people, especially women people, dealt with through this era, and I felt it was worth a feature focus. As it ran, Mad Men drew from a world of, at times, meta-commercial creativity. The first season run on AMC highlighted the role of ads in the shaping of modern culture. The series ran with the support of retro ads, commercials from the 60s and 70s that stood out with appeals to our nostalgia, the shaping of a message, its role in response to and as a driver of social change. Also, as I was watching the Mountain King episode, there was a scene when Betty was getting after Sally for smoking in the bathroom. Her brother, Bobby, entered the shot, back to the camera, shot framed over his shoulder, so we viewed the scene as he was seeing it. This framing convention happened multiple times in the course of the series, and I always understood those scenes to be semi-autobiographical. If it didn't happen actually to show creator Matthew Weiner or his family while growing up, he or a writer witnessed or heard about something similar. Different points like, oh, a neighborhood boy, literally like 11 years old, felt it was okay for him to put the moves on Betty Draper. Talk about privilege. Or when kids were watching footage of President Kennedy's assassination on television, or witnessing domestic abuse or alcoholism, the impact of the scenes takes on a darker energy through the presence of a child. Also, as I was mentioning before, funny I should talk about creative and intellectual property in relation to a show about advertising. As a person who's archived over a dozen binders of, I assume, years' worth of media for my personal consumption, this podcast shares what I'm finding as a discussion of, hey, remember when that was on? If this discussion does spark any nostalgia in any of my listeners and they want to track it down, nearly everything is available for streaming online. So never mind potential infringement, if my talking about something ever translates to anyone subscribing to or streaming it, I get no taste of that whatsoever. That's just free promotion, and you're welcome. Two things. Streaming an episode generally costs about $2, so no one's out all that much, and by the same token, no one's getting all that much. And as of this recording, I've still got a following of, well, you. So either way, it wouldn't really be moving the needle much at all. Looking at it, advertising in general drives up everyone's costs for everything and needs to be accounted for. If an ad campaign costs $20 million, that feeds back into the unit cost for any item that ad buy supports. Probably no aspect of our lives actually costs all that much, but operating stadiums, running elections, paying team contracts, producing movies, producing cars and food and soap and phones and, oh wow, yeah, pharmaceutical advertising. For stuff that works, sure, but then all of the research by the wayside on stuff that did not result in a saleable product. Not to mention the infrastructure without which modern life would be entirely untenable. For sure, the internet costs something. If we were able to parse out marketing, transportation, and production costs, we'd have a better sense of the role of creative and intellectual property in our universe. Turn on a rock, pop, or country commercial station. Turn on a streaming service like Pandora or Spotify. Music. Someone singing to you. That's a flavor your life wouldn't have without a deeply textured structure of agreements whereby you, the consumer, gets something. Things... Generally, it has to be said, things of mass market appeal, and the artists get something, and from my perspective, that of, yes, an imitator, a would-be infringer, a cover sound-alike reminds me of pale imitation, once called the sincerest form of flattery, but whatever. A dark cabal of clever sorcerers crafting increasingly powerful algorithms seeking to wring any recoverable cent from that open-ended system by whatever means necessary. How are these the focus of my rage? Why should I expect any artist to produce a song cue, a song, or theme music for free? Why should they be okay with air-quote victimless sound-alike theft? Why would not the protectors of their interests be as legitimate a part of the creative process as the creators themselves? Exploring a little piracy history, to Napster, to LimeWire, to file sharing and ringtones, concert bootlegs, equipment we could barely conceal with winter coats, to mics the width of human hair, people who record a movie and then it's everywhere. Really, I get it. On some level, the layers of protection add to the costs, but no more so than the end runs that made them necessary in the first place. My shitty, unworthy Casio covers of Bad Things and Life on Mars are not the main target, but they're definitely at that end of the range, so I totally get it. So, yeah, I'll show myself out with my Casio doodly-doos. Whatever they might have added to the experience is universally recoverable by anyone listening and who wants to by logging in at AMC.com or Amazon.com, participating in the structure we've got, and remunerating the artists in question appropriately. Or at least the letter of the agreements that they signed. Namaste. Cross Connection. In terms of Studio 6 Feet Under, you're kidding, right? I mean, Elizabeth Moss is right there from Aaron Sorkin's West Wing. 0 steps to Studio 60 on the Sunset Strip. I mean, we're there. Most of these connections run out in the other direction. In fact, Vincent Kartheiser as Pete Campbell gets me to everyone ever involved in Joss Whedon's Angels series. Christina Hendricks as Joan Holloway, another Whedonverse alum, grabs everyone in Firefly. Alison Brie, Trudy Campbell, pulls in everyone from Community, and Charles Shaughnessy as St. John Powell instigated the merger with Sterling Cooper, brings in everyone from oh wow, The Nanny, Days of Our Lives, Mad About You, Veronica Mars, Castle, and ta-da, The Magicians. So he's a golden thread into himself. I have more connections to draw, but they'll make a lot more sense if I shift a bunch of stuff around from how I usually do things. So before I get into my disc collection, what I've been watching. First, get it out of the way, Ralph and I were in the audience for a Dakota Stage Limited production of Greater Tuna. That's Bismarck, state capital of North Dakota Community Theater, a zany, quick change show I've wanted to see since about forever, and I really hope to one day. Now, that's cruel and a bit unfair. Absolutely a troupe of actors memorized words from a script and presented them on stage in front of people. It was absolutely a show, and Be fair, Greater Tuna is a high-wire act. It's, okay, for anyone still blissfully unaware what Greater Tuna is, the concept presents the 300 or so residents of the third smallest town in Texas, Tuna, Texas, and the greater metropolitan Tuna area. Indeed, everyone within the sound of small-town radio station OKKK. As written, this busy little town is played by a pair of actors. As performed, they added an actor, and in the process somehow lost about 30% of their energy. My theory, unburdened by any direct knowledge whatsoever, is that they approached this production as if it were a regular show to be presented by half a dozen actors within, 6 weeks of rehearsal should be plenty, and yeah, this is tough, let's add in a third actor to take some of the parts, they'll be fine. Any quick-change production requires layers of outrageous physicality that the audience never sees in order that the portion that they do see is all the more entertaining. Pacing hinges on there being two actors who have been working on these character changes, not costuming. You work on presenting unique and differentiated characters. The costumes, hell, you need a team of highly skilled costumers backstage whose goal in life is to make this little town the most entertaining train wreck an audience has ever seen. According to the programs, they had one person in charge of costumes. Those should be broad strokes, pre-stitched, exaggerated numbers to establish a look, and if you were wondering, yes, Jeff, your beard detracts from the scenes in which you're the mom of 3 kids, all of whom should be played by one other actor. You've got someone in charge of props and sound cues, but couldn't think of a way to convey to an audience that this woman is drowning in stray dogs and on the edge of a nervous breakdown when she's on the phone later with a Humane Society person? I don't know. How about a dozen stuffed animals on leashes and a few minutes of looped audio from the pound? No part of that home as presented convinced me of agitation, and except for Vera's performance, I was unable to keep my mind off the ticket price, which, frankly, by the end was the only thing keeping me in my seat. Vera was a delight, but as the most engaging and in-character presentation of the evening, she ended up feeling rushed somehow, and embarrassed, which is... no... Own that stage. Vera's the one where she's addressing the audience directly, and we're all suddenly the other townspeople, gathered for a meeting of the Coweta Baptist Church Smudge Snatchers Subcommittee, which Vera is deliciously catty, and the minutes of that subcommittee are ridiculous. But yeah, with the exception of Jeff's Bertha and Adam's Vera, if there was a female role in Tuna, it was taken by Annie, who... Be fair, also played a couple of male roles. Just really, at least some of the comedy is arising from clearly male persons presenting clearly female characters, and a lot of the energy comes from all of them being played by just 2 people. The portrait of this town is not flattering and is not meant to be. The energy and goings-on range from comic to dark, with plot lines tracing animal hoarding, body image dysphoria, murder as retribution for child abuse, alcoholism, desertion, full-on celebration of racism and the Klan. Hell, the radio station is called OKKK. There's also an alien abduction subplot, but most of what's wrong with these people can be laid at the feet of these people. As written, it's probably not as funny as I was expecting it would be, and maybe nothing would be. Honestly, there were parts that would have dragged whoever was doing it, but I wish something would have lifted what we saw into, I don't know, entertainment value worth the cost of a week's worth of groceries is all. And holding to a theme, we also caught the pilot episode of Indebted, episode titles in the style of Friends, the one with this, the one with that, and so forth. For Fran Drescher's Indebted, the titles all start with Everybody's Talking About, so the pilot episode wasn't called Pilot, it was called Everybody's Talking About the Pilot. So now you see where the title comes from for this, and in fact, this show was the inspiration for it. Everybody's talking about how bad this is. The cold open consists of Adam Pally and Abby Elliott, Dave and Becky, young parents of a toddler, applying Marie Kondo's minimalist KonMari method, which, quick Google search, looks like Americans have known about the sparking joy thing for more than a year now, so... way to capture that cultural lightning in a bottle there. Next, you can have everyone break into Gangnam Style like all the kids are doing these days. That is, they're meant to be young parents, although the evidence for kids in the home and on these characters is thin. We do establish that Dave's got a lesbian sister and a best friend who's a feckless goof, but back to the calamari method, Becky is trying to throw everything away, and Dave is super sentimental about all his crap from growing up. As if on cue, who rolls in the front door but his parents, Debbie and Stu, played by Fran Drescher and Steven Weber, and it's like, oh, thank God, she's here to rescue this lame, poorly conceived, and otherwise undifferentiated. I'm sure if you clicked around mid-afternoon cable offerings, you'd find shows written this poorly, all supported by online car insurance ads and J.G. Wentworth. But no, Debbie and Stu are there to be probably the worst possible people. Stu starts his own business, and to save money they cancel their health insurance. Debbie tears her ACL, and now their mortgage is underwater, they're behind on payments, and because of the fabulous cruise they just took, I guess to celebrate all the terrible news in their life, they're broke. They're really super duper broke. Well, no, they've somehow got money to pay for the Reno, as Drescher calls it, twice on their old mortgage to the Hilt house to try and sell it, which, while that's going on,
we'll just stay with you guys.
Dave and Becky are annoyed, but they figure, you know what, we wanted a little more spare time from whatever it is they do. I was never completely clear on that, and having Debbie and Stu there means built-in childcare, so bright side. The opportunity presents itself instantly. Dave wants to go to the Drake concert that's happening right then, and they weren't going to go, but now they will, so he can be one of the cool young dads. And at this amazing show, wow, you guys are at a Drake concert? Really? Instead of, wow, there was really no people of color in evidence. There were just 2 rows of bleacher seating with lights flying around you. Y'all should whip the camera around once and show him. Show him on the stage. And, oh, I know, you should have a whole lot of Drake's music playing. Wouldn't that have been convincing? Dave's trying to bond with other cool young dads, and guess who finds them in a crowded, sold-out Drake concert? But, oh hey, it's Debbie and Stu. If you're here, who's watching? You know, they probably said the child's name. Ethan? Wyatt? Asher. That's the who cares. Who's watching Asher? Oh, we left him with Dev so we could be with you. Dev? But he's my best friend my whole life and also a complete screw-up. Aye. They race home to find Dev put Asher to bed at 9 o'clock on the dot. Whew, what a relief. But was then in their bedroom with his girlfriend at 9:01. Aye. But mostly it's that Stu and Debbie tape a GoFundMe to help pay for her surgery, and Becky can be seen changing in the background with the curtains open. So, with a flash of their daughter-in-law's boobs, their GoFundMe is a wild success, especially when it has been seen by a Saudi prince who wants to buy her. So, okay, I don't know exactly when they wrote this, but nice cultural follow-on with the murder of Jamal Khashoggi. Sure, assassination, sex trafficking. Let's keep the Saudi royals in the public eye. Was this their punishment, being mentioned in a terrible sitcom? It seems light. Because make no mistake, this was a terrible sitcom. I see the appeal in 2010, maybe, in the wake of the recession, everyone's moving back with their parents. This would at least be a twist on that trope. But in 2020, who's writing this? Show creator Dan Levy shared production credits on The Goldbergs, so in theory he knows from comedy. Fran Drescher somehow doesn't know how to say Reno, and Adam Pally just doesn't know how to say no. We'd have seen it all the same. I've got 6 seasons of The Nanny on my shelf. Thank you, Ralph. I've always enjoyed her in that and was kind of looking forward to this. We both were. But within minutes, Ralph had grown tired of how crappy it was and wandered off, and I was mostly hate watching it, basically to savage it here. And that would have been it, except however this happened, my DVR recorded another episode, and in scrambling to delete it, I hit the wrong button, just in time to watch Fran confuse the concept of mental load with Barry Manilow, and watching Steven Weber ask Adam to help with his coffee grinder. I'd look it up online, he said, but every time I Google grinder, the results are not what you'd expect. I just did it, and yep, however you spell it, top result is the gay dating app, but coffee grinders are among the front page search results. And if you Google coffee grinder, your results are exactly what you'd expect. But, olds and the internet, an endless source of... if Stu's character ran an as seen on TV empire, he knows how search engines work, you great doofs. Golden thread. See, this is the biggest disappointment about this particular show. It makes me rethink the entire premise of Cross Connections, because Steven Weber is, for Christ's sakes, a direct connection to Studio 60 on the Sunset Strip. No, he's not a minor character. Tenuous barely counts. He played the network executive the show within the show aired on, appeared in every episode, and no, he wasn't the exception that proves the rule, like... I was about to say Nate Torrance played Dylan Killington. It struck me as a goof, but he played friggin' Clawhauser in Zootopia. I'm gonna have to rethink that. Nope, Weber was good in it. Solid character, solid delivery, and no, I can't say, everyone has some kind of resume saying you're an actor, you act, it's a paycheck. No, Weber has been in all kinds of schlock over the years. Well, true enough, not everything can be an Aaron Sorkin production. Just put The West Wing up against the current administration. God, a person could wish for that level of writing. Well, writing, production, casting, I digress. Since everyone's got the same IMDb on their machine that I do, I'll just list Weber's work as he appears in my collection. Whether I recorded it or not, I for sure watched him in Wings, and he appeared in The Temp. I feel like I've got that somewhere. He appeared in Star Trek Deep Space Nine. I talked about that recently. He was in Duckman, The Simpsons, Will and Grace, Monk. He was in Psych. He was in Desperate Housewives. He was in Brothers and Sisters. Direct Studio 6 Feet Under link through Rachel Griffiths there. He was on In Plain Sight, Happy Town. He was in Hot in Cleveland. He was in Community, and he was in Parenthood, which I think I maybe watched 3 episodes, but yeah, another direct 6 Feet Under link by way of Peter Krause, so there's another one. The only way I feel good about this cross-connectional hot link as the phased convergence of my media collection appearing in this god-awful sitcom is that it does not itself appear in my collection. Nope. Rolf wondered about that when we hit play on the thing. NBC's Indebted. Everybody's talking about the pilot. Aren't I going to hit record? And my instinct was, nah. I don't need to archive absolutely everything, and if it's any good, I can always go back and record it on my own time. As it was, nope. The only record of my ever having seen Indebted is right here, all I'm ever going to need, and you're not likely to hear much more about it from me. I could not tell you why. I do not know. It's a gift. Everything about that production should have worked. Adam Pally, Fran Drescher, Golden Thread here, Steven Weber, all of these people know from situation comedy, but whatever I was reacting to, I did not hit record. Indebted is not in my collection, and for that, at least, I am thankful. Quick side note, since it came up, I've wanted to mention this for a while now. Ever since I did my René Auberjonois Golden Thread and my look back at my history of media consumption, I traced connections from his appearance on Benson through to the present day. Robert Guillaume was on Aaron Sorkin's Sports Night with Peter Krause, so strong connections to both 6 Feet Under and Studio 60, along with Auberjonois having worked with Ed Begley Jr. directly in Boston Legal, which I know I did mention, but it seemed like a significant oversight leaving it out somehow. That also makes everything Felicity Huffman's been in basically 0 steps from both. Based on that, I'd say Sports Night could be the actual mystical center of my collection, except for one thing. Well, a couple of things. First, I'm not sure I archived that one, so the mystical center of my collection should in fact appear in my collection. The other is less tangible. It shifts the mystical central themes of my media collection as ranging from television production in the case of Studio 60 and a search for existential meaning in 6 Feet Under, over to some workplace dramedy from the 90s, potentially in direct contention with news radio, which has a stronger claim for having at least appeared in my cataloging efforts thus far. Smart, funny, most of the actors appear all over the place in my collection. Sadly, the show gets the big DQ, self-disqualified as the launching pad for Andy Dick into public awareness. Boo! No, big red X on that. For sure, a mystical center of my collection should be shows I have most of and can remember, and apart from just tracing among actor connections, the shows I collect have a generalized draw for me, which might go even further in explaining why I was so upset about Weber appearing in Indebted. Good luck to everyone involved in that show, but as for the show itself, I stand firmly with so far every single IMDb reviewer in their assessment. Kill it. Kill it with fire. Diving into my classic collection. Along with the election coverage I encounter in these VHS transfers from 2008, some of the most heartening and enjoyable programming I find includes the Bravo rebroadcast of episodes of The West Wing. Season 6 marked a huge shake-up as the focus of the show expanded beyond the White House and out to the campaign trail, tracing more fish-out-of-water storylines, characters who are used to steering events, reacting to events outside their control. No less so for those characters who stay behind. Following Leo McGarry's near-fatal heart attack, Allison Janney's C.J. Craig gets a promotion beyond most press secretaries in recent memory, White House Chief of Staff. With Josh and Will Bailey off staffing presidential hopefuls, it falls to Jed Bartlett, speechwriter Richard Schiff as Toby Ziegler to field questions as the new White House press secretary. And he fails. Spectacularly. His first foray into the fielding of questions from reporters is to behave as though he has never before communicated a coherent thought from the inside of his brain to any other living creature. He hunches over his podium, flies instantly to the combative. Well, no, he gets combative and defensive at exactly the same time, lashing out and suggesting perhaps the president could fly CJ out to Ramallah to swat at suicide bombers with her purse. It was not good, but it brings me to the reason I'm talking about the episode I catalogued on disc 844 and continued on 845, Liftoff, the introduction of Kristen Chenoweth as Annabeth Schott. Classic misdirection. Toby and his assistant are in the briefing room interviewing potential replacements for CJ, and at that moment, Schott comes in, interviewing for the position she'd applied for 6 months before, that of Deputy Press Secretary for Media Relations. Classic sitcom misunderstanding type stuff. Toby's asking her questions and she's responding to completely different ones. Once they said her name wrong a couple of times, they ask tiny Kristen to stand up behind the podium and she says, "Up there?" He affirms, "Oh, I'm not going up there." He says most of the job as press secretary is briefing the press, and she says, "A deputy?" He's already done with this. To be press secretary, and he's ushering her out of the room. She's saying, "Deputy what?" He's saying, "We're going to move on to someone who understands the position." She says, "To be press secretary." He says, "Do something?" C.J. Craig. Yes, C.J. Craig, former press secretary, has been promoted. Big day, all over the news. You should go watch. She said, "I've seen the news. President is fixing to send her to Ramallah to swat bombers with her purse. That's got to be some purse." Toby is incensed, but she persists, convincing him that they don't want a new press secretary right now. They want an administrative insider. A new press secretary would get eaten alive. She'll stay. She'll help groom Toby. He's fine, she says. He's got a watchable quality. And meanwhile, she'll help them conduct a real search, not some 24-hour emergency oh-my-god replacement the White House press corps will eviscerate. The thing I loved most about that scene was the knowledge Richard Schiff and director Alex Graves had about the pacing, the writing, and this delightful throwaway reference to noises off. No one in the moment should have been able to anticipate. Mark Lynn-Baker as Tim the stage manager, mashing bananas and assisting with tech while Lloyd Dallas needs him to repair a set malfunction. Do something? Toby says apropos of nothing to, well, no one. It covers a call and response beat Kristen needs for her next line. It's wickedly funny if you know the reference. In that moment, Toby's lost all control of the situation for the second time that day, and he's ready to be taken out of himself and preferably not put back again. That's gotta be some purse. Toby's not the only one with a watchable quality. Welcome to the West Wing, Annabeth Schott. Seriously fun edition. Checking out my current collection. Heading into my direct-to-DVD recordings, I wanted to talk a little bit about how awesome Supernatural has been, mainly in anticipation of its season resume coming up here in a couple weeks. On the face of it, Season 15 has seemed a bit directionless, true, but what they've been doing is tracing the Winchesters through something of a remember when highlight reel. Sparking off the season with a gunshot that linked Sam and Chuck, essentially God, the ultimate storyteller, they fight off a graveyard full of zombies reanimated by souls released from hell, resealing that portal with an assist from British Men of Letters operative Ketch and Rowena's Sacrifice, along with the demon using Jack's Nephilim corpse and setting late prophet Kevin Tran free. Meanwhile, Chuck has been reaching out to his sister Amara, the Darkness, and Becky, longtime fan and recurring character. The Winchesters encounter an old foe, Lilith, seeking to settle old scores with Chuck, and encounter Emily, an old friend, raiding Rowena's apartment. Dean gives Emily and Sam some alone time and meets up with a fellow hunter once upon a time who, it appears, took a different path. When God shows them their future and demands their loyalty, they reject it and find themselves somehow not the heroes of even their own story. So they track down former hunter turned werewolf, Garth, who directs them to a bar in Alaska to change their luck. The show has 9 episodes left, and a whole lot of opportunities for recurring guest appearances to lay in all those nostalgia bombs for longtime fans, and plenty of time for there to be at least one massive comic adventure as well, so here's hoping. I feel like knowing this was it, they planned the season out to hit all these notes, and I'm guessing they're building something pretty fantastic. Season is set to resume in a couple weeks here, so carry on, boys. Carry on. Depending on when I actually record this and when you actually hear this, for sure this one has been a long time putting together. The Doctor Who Season 12 finale is either imminent or behind us now, and wow, what an episode! Okay, right, writing this, just letting you know I haven't seen it. I saw the run-up and wonder now if the Doctor took her companions to a parallel timeline. Except, just a few episodes ago they were all meeting back up with their family and friends in the Nightmare episode that began in 12th century Syria but ended galaxies removed with one immortal trapped between 2 planets she'd been torturing for eons and the other trying to free her. No part of that episode made sense. I swear they keep teasing the Dream Lord and not resolving it. Run-up to this one started with a parallel cyber inspiration for Frankenstein, a single cyber fighter prototype terrorizing the Byron household summer of 1816, but blew up into a full-scale invasion of the Cybermen and their destruction of all humanity that one time in the far-flung future. Doc, are we still in our timeline? Setting aside for a moment that other time when we destroyed our environment and made our home planet unlivable again, you dispatched the Cybermen to D-Space or something, defeated them again, and then defeated them yet again. Where'd this batch come from? I mean, we've also run into a black female doctor in a Type 40 TARDIS in the old-school engine room. It seems a track from an alternate timeline. I mean, I get glimpses of it almost certainly were David Tennant at one point. I've seen every Doctor I've met in your work, but you and Ruth are clearly both the Doctor, but she's a fugitive. Was she hiding out in this timeline, Doctor, or have you been hiding out in hers? Not to mention this Master reboot, the Panopticon in Ruins, and the Timeless Child, another Moffat. There's just a lot of storytelling y'all shoehorned into a finale. Hope most of it lands, that's all I've got to say. Speaking of Moffat, I heard bad things about the 3rd season of Sherlock. I watched it recently, and yeah, parts of it were unworthy, but I thought it held up. I mean, the discussion that John could only be happy with Mary Watson if she were some sort of criminal daredevil, actually, in the universe of this show, it absolutely made sense. And when Mr. Memory strolled into Sherlock's home and relieved himself in the fireplace, it's been a while, but I got shades of Fargo's 3rd season, B.M. Varga and his gross teeth arguing that he could basically do whatever he wanted. No one was ever going to stop him. Between his money, his attitude, and his enforcers, he always managed to organize the circumstances to make this the case. It didn't hurt that he was facing down go-along-to-get-along Midwesterners, though I think Jerry Lundegaard's father-in-law would have at least throat-punched him once before being found face down in a pool of his own blood. Yeah, I'll have more to say about that one once it returns in April here. Oh, and before I pan away, the 3rd installment of that season, His Last Vow, introduces, I called him Mr. Memory, Charles Augustus Magnuson, a man whose mind is probably superior to the great detective's himself, great blackmailer of famous and powerful people, the conceit of this character is introduced as he's looking at someone, a readout appears like he's a Terminator, like he's using Google Glass or something, providing a very brief biography of them, including, in red, pressure points. Generally, these are very brief, and we're led to believe that he has stored away in great basement vaults a fantastic collection of compromat which he can call up and threaten to expose at will. When he meets with Sherlock, however, a rapid scroll of pressure points appears which include, according to Sherlock's production team, pressure points, John Watson, opium, Irene Adler, Jim Moriarty, Mycroft Holmes, Hound of the Baskervilles, and a couple of other two blurries on a scroll that rolled several times, so Magnuson didn't have that much secret hidden knowledge about him. Mentioned Redbeard, which, I did not see in that scroll, and they left undefined. Also of interest, seemed to pop up in his readout ahead of him peeing into Holmes' fireplace, somehow broke out porn preferences for both Holmes and Watson in turn, which Magnuson's readout characterized as normal, which is frankly unlikely, but this is what a shrug sounds like on a podcast. Overall, I thought Season 3 was fine. The Mr. Memory resolve was disappointing, and I was not feeling the cliffhanger to Season 4. But no, for sure, I'm interested in watching Season 4 should the BBC America air it again. A few other points of interest as my current collection tracks into the 300s. Woo! Ralph and I have been enjoying the 18th season of Project Runway quite a lot. As the show heads into the finale in Fashion Week, we've absolutely got favorites. Well, I do. Ralph says he's mostly just watching the show and enjoying the competition, but as of this past week, he was kind of cheering for Nancy. And me, I really enjoyed Jeffrey's work. I haven't watched it yet, and since this week is a double elimination, maybe both of us are out of designer, but I'm for sure excited about seeing what they come up with. Update, both of our designers made the final four. Well done! And actually on Disc X300, I kept a copy of that Google Plus commercial where the widower is asking Google to share reminders of his late wife, things she said, photos they took, adventures they'd had, play our favorite movie, show me pictures from our anniversary. Loretta's favorite flower was tulips. Loretta used to say tickled pink. Loretta said not to be too sad and to get out of the dang house. I'm so serious. The feels on this thing. Oh, and I was able to close a gap I've been aware of for a while now. Back on Disc X098, I'd recorded half of the second season Bob's Burgers episode, Bad Tina. It cut out somehow, no big whoop, figured I'd catch it again at some point. It was a fun installment, the world's introduction to Tammy, voiced by... Oh, hell no. How am I just learning about this now? Tammy Larson, longtime frenemy of the Belcher clan, is voiced by no less a person than Jenny Slate. Yeah, I thought that was a good place to debut that effect. Aside from this character who is a hoot, well, a hoot with a toot, Slate represents one half of the funniest creation in the history of television, Mona Lisa Saperstein of the Saperstein twins on Parks and Rec. It's like I'm creeping up on another mystical center of my media collection. Nope, no. Just because offhand I can point to half a dozen Parks and Rec's connections for Bob's Burgers, including Slate, H. John Benjamin, Nick Offerman, National Treasure Megan Friggin Mullally, Rachel Dratch, and Aziz Ansari, well, it's certainly a strong contender, and I do have 99.999% of the thing in my media collection, and I love so very, very much of what they did. I still feel it's just a solid component of my media collection, not a mystical center. It's just fun exploring these things, and incidentally, the episode featured Tina's collection of erotic fan fiction, which she kept displayed on her desk in a volume of notebooks with such titles as Erotic Twilight, Sexy Lord of the Rings, Erotic Harry Potter, Erotic Cinderella, Sexy Simpsons, Erotic Gossip Girl, Sexy Sesame Street, Erotic ER, Erotic Bones, Erotic Law and Order, Sexy 60 Minutes, Erotic Garfield, Sexy 90210, Erotic Good Wife, and Erotic Muppets, as well as her current creative effort, Erotic Friend Fiction. Now, if she were to pen the appearance of Tabitha Johansson into an episode of Sexy Parks and Rec, the Ouroboros would be complete. So happy finally to have added that episode and included that character's introduction into my collection. The Sinner returned on USA. First couple of episodes have explored the out-of-control life of Matt Bomer as a young father and impossibly beautiful prep school history teacher Jamie, who suffers hallucinations of a college buddy after he watches him bleed out following a car accident at the end of the third season premiere. There is a lot of weirdness around the circumstances of this man's death, why the car crashed where it did, Jamie's relationship with his newborn child, with his wife, a woman of color up against old photos hinting at his history as a white supremacist, not to mention visions of his dead friend wringing the child's neck, his recent flakiness at work, his use of drugs, who's that artist in the woods whose home they were speeding towards, who's that grave for, and, oh yeah, what's with him visiting a hospital in the middle of the night and strangling an old guy? As with past seasons, I despair of any hope that The Sinner will answer a single one of these tantalizing questions until the season finale. In the meantime, Bill Pullman as Detective Ambrose, sometimes found on the floor of his office, crumpled by sciatica, should be put out to pasture already, will stumble around learning a million more provocative things that steadfastly refuse to resolve until the writers decide they will, and the picture they form will be the kind of twist ending M. Night Shyamalan would project out of hand for being too contrived, but damn if it doesn't all hold together somehow. Once I finally put my disc set together for the third season of Legion, no timeline, none. It'll happen when it happens. I'll probably put a Sinner set together. It'd be fun to watch all these things in a binge. USA also premiered a murder mystery in 10 parts called Briar Patch, starring Rosario Dawson as Allegra Dill, an investigator for a Senate subcommittee called back home to St. Boniface, Texas, where her sister Felicity, a police detective and a landlord, is blowed up outside one of the properties she managed. Says right there it's a murder mystery in 10 parts, so nope. Right now, not a clue who blowed up her sister with a bomb in her cop car. Tenants, colleagues, attorney, rich party boy, rumpled old news guy, one of the zoo animals loose and wandering around this town. It's downright Tarantinian in its propensity for violence and pulp fictional confrontation, but then that's the hallmark of the 10-part cable television mystery, hot chicks and exploitable elements. The writing is smart, the dialogue is engaging, so I'm a follow this one around. So far it's a hoot. Other callbacks, Better Call Saul's 5th season started up this past week. I haven't seen it yet, but I did see El Camino rebroadcast from, I guess it must have been Netflix. That was the branding on it. That was the Breaking Bad universe follow-up from Aaron Paul as Jesse Pinkman's escape from the neo-Nazis' meth lab operation. Gripping, occasionally touching flashbacks livened up what was otherwise a very straightforward 2-hour movie, and there was no especially compelling reason that Jesse wasn't in custody immediately upon leaving the compound. The late activated LoJack was odd, and the oh my god quick thinking on the part of his friends, you take that vehicle, no, you take that vehicle, and you take that one to go to Mexico, etc., when those two would have been like their first stop when the Jesse Pinkman manhunt started. But all that was fine. Jesse gave Johnny Law the slip long enough to ransack Todd's condo for his money stash, touch base with that vacuum sales guy Fresh Start connection, and settle an old score with a couple of welders he had some history with. 6 years after Breaking Bad ended, this seconds later follow-up read way more like The Legend of Jesse Pinkman. Power struggle standoff with not cops in Todd's condo. For Christ's sakes, Jesse knows from cops, and to be $1,800 short for the Fresh Start is such a Vince Gilligan plot point. Everything Jesse'd been through, no reason whatsoever he wouldn't shoot both of those air-quote cops, scoop out all of the money, and have plenty to spare once he got where he was going. Speaking of which, from the welder's point of view, oh hey, we just stole thousands of dollars of free money from a dead neo-Nazi. Wanna fly to Vegas? Nah, dude, I've got a way better idea. Hear me out. Let's grab our 3 idiot friends, this is gonna be epic, hire exactly 3 local prostitutes for the 5 of us, do a few bumps of coke at our place of business, and when we're done, all of us, like 20 minutes later, send the girls away, sit down, get drunk, and BS. It's all good, right? Hope that mean kid who recognized me earlier today as the guy who once helped a bunch of white supremacists humiliate and torture him doesn't ever come after me for the rest of the drug money he knows I've got and probably haven't deposited anywhere. Nah, I'll just hang out at the one place he for sure knows how to find me. Nah, that's plenty. The show is great, and in all reality, it had to work like this in order to fit all of the telling of backstory, especially the one right at the end, flashing back to one of his final conversations with then still alive Walter White. They're talking about Jesse maybe going to business school if he can get his GED, and Jesse's got to remind him that he got his friggin' high school diploma. You were there. When I graduated, Mr. White, you were on the stage with me. That was exactly the right place for that comic beat, and really, it's like those half-dozen years since the finale never happened. Show could have still been, it all rang perfectly true. El Camino, what a great showcase. Hell of a curtain call for the Jesse Pinkman character. Well done, everyone. VideoFuzzy at the movies. A couple weeks ago now, Ralph and I took in an action-packed, coke-fueled explosion of color and excitement in DC's Birds of Prey and the fantabulous emancipation of one Harley Quinn, or, as some commentators have said, horrible, it's not the comic, it's human-hating. Settle down. Margot Robbie reprises her Suicide Squad role as Harleen Quinzel. Harley Quinn, a board-certified psychiatrist turned mall. She is broken up with Puddin' once and for good. Somewhat at loose ends, she starts to think about what life after Joker can be. Maybe she'll be a hitwoman, a bounty hunter, a mercenary, a dog walker, or finder of lost things. She seems a little too much of an adrenaline junkie to put up with billable hours with neurotic Gothamites. Her friends don't even think she's broken up. All Mr. Jade need to do is snap his fingers, she'd come running. So, almost just proving it to herself, she hijacks a truck and blows up Axis Chemicals. Their place, as it were. This gets the attention of Renee Montoya, solid detective overlooked repeatedly for promotion because sexism. She's working on a dust-up traceable to mob boss Roman Sionis. Ewan McGregor as the Black Mask, who's working his way down a list, trying to find a gem inscribed with the access codes for the Bertinelli fortune, leaving corpses and mayhem in his wake. Nightclub owner Sionis has a dark misogynist streak, but to be fair, he comes across as equal opportunity misanthropic. His beef with Harley stems from her attacking his driver and breaking his legs, but it opened a spot for Black Canary, of all people, a singer at his club. Hey, you're always hanging around. I need a driver. Be that. Sionis isn't the only one working through a list. A mysterious figure has been targeting Goombas associated with the Bertinelli massacre, putting the access codes in play in the first place. That's right, Huntress, a highly skilled revenge-fueled vigilante I nearly confused with Batwoman from the CW series. Nah, she's Helena Bertinelli, and much more reminiscent of Lisbeth Salander than Ruby Rose. Ultimately, we're all looking for pickpocket Cassandra Cain, who lifted the gems so randomly from Siona's stooge Victor Saz, who I notice is also the dead guy this season, The Sinner. Cool. With the gem missing, Sionis targets Quinn, who offers to find the gem for him. She gets an assist from Black Canary, who points her towards Cassandra in police custody, who has swallowed the gem. Harley frees her from the cop shop with all of the stealth and delicacy you might anticipate with this character, particularly once a snoot full of coke from the evidence locker has the kind of effect on her that a can of spinach has on Popeye. Be fair, though, she was slamming a buttload of ass around before the coke, and now the chase is on, leading to a towering showdown at the old amusement park / strip club. Not sure what the business model on that was, but it was about the most Gotham thing I've seen on film since the Penguin's lair in Batman Returns. Trip P. My background with these characters, it'll turn up at some point, and I'm looking forward to it, but I first encountered Huntress on the WB as part of its short-lived Birds of Prey series starring Ashley Scott as Helena Kyle, itself a departure from the DC Comics where, per Wictacular, she'd first appeared in the distant past as superhero-turned-supervillain. Then this was closer to the series in an alternate DC universe as Helena Wayne, the daughter of Bruce Wayne and Selina Kyle. The series kept her parents but swapped the last name, the implication that Bruce may never have known about her. Whatever else is going on with him, Bruce is just some rich dude. Not that that's not a superpower, but Catwoman's origins are potentially a little more mystical, and the memory of Tim Burton's Batman Returns was fresh in my mind, so presenting Huntress as an on-her-own-terms superhero working together with Oracle, Barbara Gordon, formerly Batgirl, and Black Canary's daughter, I thought made a strong core for the storytelling, but as indicated in the description, short-lived, it did not carry, despite the darkly entertaining inclusion of Mia Sara as Dr. Harleen Quinzel, the show's pot-stirring psychiatrist and Helena's therapist. So, I was thrown a bit to discover this huntress was Helena Bertinelli, a highly trained, vengeance-fueled vigilante avenging the death of her millionaire parents. Where have I heard this origin story before? But while the movie is all Harley all the time, same as at least half of Suicide Squad, what it did was lay in a very capable introduction to a new team of talented DC crime fighters. Overlooked and passed over for the last time, Detective Montoya quits the force and strikes out on her own. Dinah Lance clearly inherited her mother's powerful cry, as well as some serious hand-to-hand skills as Black Canary, and Mary Elizabeth Winstead was an impressive and powerful huntress. Now, whether these three could helm a movie on their own without Harley as storyteller, who can say? None of them got anything like the screen time that Robbie did, and this same movie from any one of their perspectives would have been quite different. But I thought they did just fine, and if we ever see Birds of Prey 2 hunting season or whatnot, I'm pretty sure I'd go. And with that, it is long past time for me to wrap this up. You know, my goal is to get 2 of these out a month, but life gets in the way. My greatest hope is that once I do get them put together is that you find them to be entertaining, and maybe even a nice jumping off point for looking back on your own media consumption, seeking connections and parallels and insights on our current media landscape as well. And thank you so much for checking in. You can check out my catalog listing along with audio links at VideoFuzzy.blogspot.com, past episodes at Apple Podcast. Feedback is always appreciated. You can contact me through my blog or podcast sites, via email or through my VideoFuzzy page on Facebook, or you can follow me at TJ VideoFuzzy on Twitter. For VideoFuzzy, I'm Terry J. Aman. Happy viewing. It might be amazing, it might just be scuzzy. We'll find out for sure the next VideoFuzzy.
This is podcasting gold. What are you talking about?
Video outtakes. And if I'm in trouble for all of them, so as credited earlier, here I go. Enjoy.